The Supreme Court of Canada is now deliberating on a case involving a French-Canadian comedian and a young disabled singer. The court must decide whether Mike Ward compromised Jérémy Gabriel's right to safeguard his dignity when he called him ugly on stage and made a joke about drowning him.
It creates a chill effect where people will simply not say anything. And in our society of cancel culture and generally there is a chill on freedom of expression.
On Monday, Ward's lawyer told the court the comedian has the right to make jokes like that. He said mockery doesn't deprive a person of a service or right. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association put forward a similar argument. But Quebec's Commission of Human Rights and Youth Rights said the case is about discrimination against a disabled child. Gabriel was 13 years old when Ward started making the jokes about him. In 2016, the Quebec Human Rights Tribunal ordered Ward to pay thousands of dollars in compensation to Gabriel. And with Canada's highest court hearing arguments from both sides this week, we will await their decision, which is expected to take months. In the meantime, we want to hear from our panel of comedians who have some differing opinions on this fight and what freedom of speech means when it comes to comedy. Adora Nwofor is known on Calgary's comedy scene as statuesque, and when she's not getting the laughs, she's also fighting for equality as the president of Black Lives Matter Calgary. Jess Salomon was an international war crimes lawyer before she started her stand-up career. She's originally from Montreal and joins us from New York. And in Denver is Josh Blue, a comedian and Paralympic soccer athlete. Thanks, everyone, for being with us here on Canada Tonight.
Thanks for having us.
So I just want to, for folks who are not familiar with the joke that started this all, I'll just give you a brief summary. It was about Jérémy Gabriel, who has Treacher-Collins syndrome. He became a celebrity in Quebec when he was a child. He sang with Celine Dion and for Pope Benedict. And Ward had this bit, which he repeated many times over the span of 3 years, where he says he assumed Gabriel had a terminal illness and he kept defending him, and then he realized he was still alive. He jokes that he tried to drown him and that the only thing Gabriel suffered from was being ugly. So for that, Gabriel's family took Ward to a human rights tribunal. So, Jess, I want to get your take, maybe first on the joke. Whether or not it's funny, I mean, does it go too far?
I mean, I think, we can have a conversation about whether we personally think the joke is too far. It's not a joke I would make, but it is clearly a joke, tasteless, offensive, belittling, whatever it may be. It isn't hate speech, it isn't defamation, and those are the currently accepted constitutional limits on freedom of expression. And I think to rule otherwise would really expand the limitations in a way that I don't know, could be chilling, absolutely.
Josh, is there a difference between someone like you with a disability making a joke like that and an able-bodied person making a joke?
I mean, definitely. I mean, having a disability my whole life, it opens the avenue to be able to talk about it. But as tasteless as you may think the joke was, I think, like she just said, it was on a comedy stage and should be allowed to be able to have freedom of speech there.
Adora, do you think that Mike Ward should face consequences for making that joke on stage?
I think he should face consequences for any actions that so. The consequences are sometimes that people will laugh at you, and sometimes the consequences are that people will look for a higher judgment. So I think that both of them are looking to set a precedent.
So you agree that the court is the right place to have this conversation about whether the line has been crossed?
I believe that that's what we have set up in our society. That's what we do. And I mean, social credit is a thing, and it does not seem to be getting the kind of justice that he wants. So I guess that's the only other avenue he has to take.
Sorry, I'm going to ask Jess to jump in. Do you agree? You're a lawyer. Do you think that the legal courts, the legal system is the way to address this, or are there other ways to have someone like Mike Ward face consequences for a statement like that?
Well, I think like what people commonly refer to as cancel culture, which I would, kind of mostly disagree with, is, deplatforming people. So boycotting their work, getting the venue where they perform, not to have them perform. There's a lot of ways to register your disagreement with a comedian. And also in this case, where it is truly like kind of like a bullying case, I would say. Mostly this kid was bullied by other kids in school who watched this special, where the special is for people that are 16 and up. So he's not responsible for these kids having seen this special. And, there are anti-bullying laws that you could use to go after the kids that were bullying him. It wasn't as if Mike Ward was using comedy as a pretext for some kind of rally to incite hatred against disabled people, or this kid in particular on account of being disabled, in which case, that would be a different circumstance. It wasn't his audience that went out after hearing him, to go after this kid and bully him. It was the kids around him in school. So yeah, to me, it seems like there are a lot of other options rather than taking this to getting the state involved, where legitimately that becomes an issue of cancel culture. I laugh a lot about the kind of people that make themselves such a victim because they've been kicked off Twitter or whatever for hate speech. It's like, that's not, that's a private company, you can go anywhere. You're selling a book about this. You still have free expression. But when it does involve the government, I mean, legitimately that is cancel culture at that point,
Josh, Ward has argued essentially that he wasn't just making fun of a kid with a disability, he was making fun of a famous kid with a disability, and that puts him in another category, and that also, he's kind of treating him just like anyone else, because he could be the butt of a joke just like anyone else. What do you make of that as kind of a defense?
I think it's a great defense. I mean, he's in the public eye. Honestly, in this culture of treating disabled people like we're weak and someone that needs to be taken care of, I feel like this lawsuit perpetuates the stereotype that we're defenseless and we can't take a joke.
Adora, do you think there needs to be lines drawn when it comes to comedy, not just about ableist jokes, but racist, homophobic, etc.? Do you think, a court wading in is essentially going to draw a line about what's allowed and what's not? Do you think that is an arena where things should be allowed?
I think that there should be a line drawn around hate speech. So if there's hate speech in comedy, then yeah, there should be consequences.
Do you consider this, though, falling under hate speech?
I think that I'm not quite sure what hate speech is in the disabled community, but I feel like benefiting from a disabled person or someone who's marginalized, then that definitely needs to be put into question. So I truly don't know if there was a conversation about is there any remorse, or if there needs to be a different way to deal with this situation. But I think that when we talk about people benefiting from marginalized groups, and the person who is actually the marginalized person speaking on it, then they need to be heard. Yeah.
Jess, there's this conversation about cancel culture ruining comedy, political correctness ruining comedy. Do you think that that is the case? And should this be the one place where you can say what you want without consequence?
I mean, I think that there are always consequences, as there should be. If a comedian says something on stage that is offensive and really upsets someone and causes harm there are a lot of financial consequences, and the market has its way of handling that. I don't think there's a place, unless it truly is something like, for example, like Gavin McInnes of the, leader of the Proud Boys, pretending like, oh, it's all a joke, I'm a comedian. He had a radio show that I regrettably went on in 2016 when I got to New York. And, that was ostensibly comedy. And then obviously it wasn't, that's just pretending that, oh, it's a character. And it's like, no, you're the leader of a terrorist organization. Like, there's a clear difference between those things. And I don't think that the courts should be deciding, short of hate speech or defamation, what comedians can and can't say.
Josh, do you think that political correctness is ruining comedy, and do you worry what a ruling in this case could do to your career and others in your field?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it would gut comedy if it went against Mike. I as a performer, I walk the line for a living. I talk about disability, and I really am in your face about it. But I'm unafraid of it. I mean, I think you have to find that line and walk on it as close to it without falling over into a lawsuit.
And Adora, you talk about race and racism on stage all the time. Are people uncomfortable, and does it matter to you?
Oh, for sure, people are uncomfortable. I think that some people are uncomfortable because they feel badly for me. Racism is a horrific experience. But I also think that some people are uncomfortable because they think I assume that they're racist, and I don't know, because I don't necessarily know who the audience is. But if I say I'm born, raised, and still living the racism dream in Calgary, and you're upset, then maybe we found out you're racist tonight.
All right, we will leave it there. Josh Blue in Denver, Jess Salomon in New York, and Adora Nwofor in Calgary tonight. Thanks, everyone, for sharing your thoughts tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.